The cave was racked with nerves all week. Firstly, the debates about the options for negotiations on Ukraine, announced by Trump, did not subside. Secondly, the war continued to unfold with a massive attack by Rushists on the Ukrainian energy sector. Putin set the task to freeze the Ukrainian people, and for this alone he can be accused of genocide. Thirdly, Biden managed to achieve a truce between Israel and Lebanon, and this is a tangible victory for the outgoing administration. Finally, NATO began talking about the need to provide Ukraine with medium-range missiles such as Tomahawk missiles, capable of striking very far, flying over the Ural Ridge. If such weapons are provided to Kyiv, the war will take on a completely different character. Putin, who rushed to Astana on an urgent visit, desperately bleated about his garbage can, Oreshnik, and even announced a strike on the government quarter of Kyiv. And Lavrov's deputy, Ryabakov, promised to make the West tremble and bewildered. Probably, the Russians are preparing to strike such a blow, and not with an empty shell, but with a warhead that can be divided into 10 parts, but so far in a non-nuclear version. According to rat dramaturgy, everything is logical: first a dummy, then a firecracker, and finally a nuclear weapon. But this is not certain, although the button is itching. The State Duma approved in the second and third readings a draft federal constitutional law on restricting access to information about the actions of the authorities during martial law. Europe is also preparing. Officials are beginning to understand that the upcoming war with Russia is already approaching the borders in the form of hybrid attacks. And the DHL plane that crashed the other day, flying from Leipzig to Vilnius, is precisely from the category of such destructive actions by Russia. Bruno Karl, head of the German Secret Service BND, said that he expects Moscow to further intensify hybrid military actions. Russia's extensive use of hybrid measures increases the risk that NATO will eventually consider invoking Article 5 on collective defense, he said. The only thing that can deter an aggressor today is NATO's Article 5, and it is time to expand the cases of its application, given the modern challenges from the swamp empire. The debate about the options for freezing the war does not subside. The West is considering different scenarios. Putin expects to win the negotiations. Ukraine will decline, Russia will rearm, and the West will lose interest in Kyiv. However, with Western support, Ukraine would use the respite to restore its economy, update its political system, and deter Russian aggression. The task is for this scenario to prevail over its alternative. But for this, Ukraine must receive security guarantees and the best way to protect itself joining NATO. Then the alliance would be joined by Europe's largest, most innovative and battle-hardened army and its defense industry. NATO would need fewer American troops, and Trump might like that. However, it will not only be Trump who will take part in freezing the war on the European continent, but also European allies, who will probably have to deploy peacekeeping troops on Ukrainian territory. But it is not a fact that Putin is capable of reaching an agreement. He is raising the stakes, but time is already working against him. This week has resulted in the fall of the ruble, which has gone downhill so much that shadow players have had to intervene, burning the precious currency in the furnace of devaluation. Experts are no longer talking about 150, but 180 rubles per dollar. Zombie economics has been distorted, and Nabiullina has stated that inflation can no longer be stopped. At the same time, Assad, out of breath and in his underwear, rushed to Moscow, his troops beginning to retreat under the pressure of pro-Turkish groups. The rebel advance units already control the west of Aleppo. The M5 road, the central highway running from the Iranian border to the capital, has been taken under control. Rebel forces are attacking and are about to take the city of Telephone Rifat, from where the Russians have already left. That is, pro-Turkish forces are squeezing Iran and Russia out of Syria, and this is not the first time Erdogan has hit Putin in the mud. Assad was waiting for an audience in Moscow, hoping for magical help. And the Kremlin was following the events in Tbilisi, where the police began to disperse the opposition protesting against the falsified parliamentary elections. All this has happened before in the post-Soviet expanses, and there is only one means against the usurpation of power: armed resistance. If the people do not take up arms, they will be enslaved and destroyed. This is an axiom. Freedom is not given for free. Putin shits red lines, declaring that he will not allow Ukraine to acquire nuclear weapons. He shakes the Oreshnik, promises to deliver a crushing blow, and groans from the erotic image of Trump, worrying for his life. Peskov bulges his eyes and admonishes that there is no point in being sad about rubles. The salary is in pieces of wood anyway, and who cares about the enemy's currency? The Arctic Fox has already sniffed his way into the Kremlin, sniffed the furniture and began to settle in, marking Gazprom papers and central bank banknotes. Regional leaders have been allowed to regulate food prices. Dry superjets ignite faster than wet ones. And oil depots in the Rostov region are shot down by drones more often than in the Urals. And everything can get worse at any moment. What if Grandpa Biden brings the situation to the point that there is no point in negotiations at all? There is only one answer: the dog knows. More precisely, the Arctic fox.